big international story that came over the weekend. United Kingdom and European leaders are now drafting support and a Ukraine peace plan. Remember, European nations and earlier the Biden administration of the USA were fully supportive of Ukraine as an ally. But now with Trump clearly making it clear that he's not really interested in this war to continue, not truly supportive of Ukraine, European leaders to take peace plan to America. European leaders back Zelenskyy. They are making a plan. Remember, because he's on a meeting spree right now. Volodymyr Zelenskyy has met Starmer, Trude, even King Charles and other European leaders to seek support, perhaps banking on his last hope from European nations.
Дорогі українці, українки, повертаємось додому. Як підсумок цих днів, чітка підтримка Європи, більше єдності, ще більше готовності співпрацювати, всі єдині в головному, щоб мир був реальним, потрібні реальні гарантії безпеки. І це позиція всієї нашої Європи, усього континенту. Британія, Європейський Союз, Норвегія, Туреччина. Сьогодні ми скоординували наші позиції, буде багато зустрічей, багато спільної роботи. Найближчими днями, найближчими тижнями буде дипломатія заради миру. І заради того, щоб всі ми були разом. Україна, вся Європа і обов'язково Америка. Звісно, ми усвідомлюємо важливість Америки. І ми вдячні за всю підтримку, яку ми отримали від Сполучених Штатів Америки. Не було такого дня, щоб ми не відчували цієї вдячності, бо це вдячність за збереження нашої незалежності. Наша стійкість в Україні, вона базується на тому, що роблять заради нас і заради власної безпеки наші партнери. Саме мир нам потрібен, а не вічна війна.
This weekend, I've been hosting European leaders here in London to work together for the security of the United Kingdom, Ukraine, and Europe as a whole. Through my discussions over recent days, we've agreed that the UK, France, and others will work with Ukraine on a plan to stop the fighting. Then we'll discuss that plan with the United States and take it forward together. Our starting point must be to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position now, so that they can negotiate from a position of strength. And we are doubling down in our support. Yesterday evening, the UK signed a £2.2 billion loan to provide more military aid to Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. And today I'm announcing a new deal, which allows Ukraine to use £1.6 billion of UK export finance to buy more than 5,000 air defence missiles, which will be made in Belfast, creating jobs in our brilliant defence sector.
And we're going to continue to be there to support Ukraine as necessary with whatever it takes for as long as it takes, because Ukraine is not just defending its own territory, it's defending the very principles and values that underpin all of our democracies. So as we look at what's going to be necessary in the coming years, I can assure you that Canada and Canadians will be there.
Remember that also from the United States of America, the situation with European nations is very different. The European nations strategically are geographically closer to Ukraine. So it will benefit in ways different than it would for USA. Let's get in a perspective on this. My colleague Shashank Mattu closely tracks the Ministry of External Affairs and of course the Foreign Affairs for India today. Shashank, good morning. You tell me this, of how and why do you think European nations have decided to step away from what the USA is saying, or basically stand the same stand that they had, unlike the USA, and how are they going to take it ahead?
Well, Pooja, you're absolutely right. And the reason why they've decided to have this big meeting in London is because of the disastrous summit meeting that between Trump and Zelenskyy. We all saw that meeting, and it was very, very clear that there was a very little meeting of the minds between the Ukrainian president and the president of the United States. I think it has been a tectonic shift in Europe in the last couple of weeks to realize that America, the country that has provided for their security for the last 80 years, is no longer as interested in playing that role. And now Europe realizes that it needs to step up and provide for its own security, provide for its own diplomacy. So that's why you have this big meeting of European leaders, NATO, as well as the Prime Minister of Canada, to come together and say that, look, if the Americans are going to deal directly with the Russians, then we need to come onto the table as well and present a plan to end the war in Europe, which is by Europe and for Europe. Now, what will happen moving forward is, according to French President Macron, that a 1-month ceasefire is being proposed on the land, at sea, and at air in the Ukraine conflict. What you're also going to have then is broader talks to see what can be done to provide short-term support for Ukraine. You already saw what the British Prime Minister said about providing a couple $2 billion to make sure that Ukraine's immediate military needs will be provided for. Of course, after that, there is going to have to be a broader deal to see whether...
You know, with these visuals, Shashank, that you're telling us, Trudeau patting him on the shoulder, Starmer walking alongside. So at least the European nations here making it clear they stand by Ukraine. But can these countries in larger numbers together perhaps be able to overturn the change in USA's policy? Stay on with me, Shashank. We have more news coming in. For now, Zelenskyy gets support from the European nations. Will he get support again from Trump? Let's take a look at the big news coming in now. Ukraine, Zelenskyy is still hopeful. He says he can salvage relationship with the United States of America. Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said he believed he could salvage the relationship after, as the world has now seen, the explosive meeting on camera in the Oval Office. But he said talks need to continue in closed doors. Perhaps a realization that should have come earlier. This, many have said, shouldn't have happened on camera at all. In an extraordinary meeting, remember, it was broadcast live on Friday. Donald Trump, look at that body language, accusing Zelenskyy of being ungrateful to the aid from United States of America, of showing disrespect to America, and of even risking a World War III, and then cast it out into Washington's support for Ukraine. You can see that both leaders, in fact, Vance was here as well, doubling down on Zelenskyy. Shashank Mattu is joining me on that. Let's listen in first to what Zelenskyy said.
Назад. Це наша політика бути послідовними, незважаючи на те, що сталося раніше, незважаючи на це, ми конструктивні. Якщо ми домовилися, що вона буде підписана, з нашого боку, ми готові підписувати. Я, чесно кажучи, думаю, що і Сполучені Штати будуть готові. Напевно, потрібен час проаналізувати якісь речі. Я думаю, що наші відносини будуть продовжені, тому що це більше, ніж відносини одного чи іншого моменту. Ми повинні бути відкритими. Україна країна не найбільша в світі, хоча всі бачать, як вона бореться за свою незалежність і свободу.
As Shashank continues to be with us. Shashank, what happened here after that spat to keep the hope that it may actually get back to support and discussions again? Tell us more about this.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Zelenskyy has said that essentially this is not a relationship necessarily between just two men. It's a relationship between the United States and Ukraine. And on the basis of that, he's hoping that there can be a relationship between himself and Donald Trump. Of course, we can all be skeptical about whether that's actually possible. We all saw the visuals coming out of the Oval Office over the last week. Also, it's very clear that Donald Trump has a particular style. He operates of instinct and of a personal like and dislike for leaders in particular policies. And it's very, very clear that there is not much love between him and Donald Trump, between Zelenskyy and Donald Trump. And part of what we're seeing, we just talked about the European leaders coming together to put together a peace plan. Part of the logic of that is for having European leaders come together and say, okay, we're stepping in now, and we will sit together to provide a common front. So it doesn't have to be Trump and Zelenskyy who have to get along, but Trump and European leaders as a whole who will sit together and decide what happens now, because we've seen what happened in this meeting between Trump and Zelenskyy. There's no love lost between these two men, and we need to make sure that the process isn't derailed because of the tension between these two leaders. So I don't think it's necessarily possible for that relationship to be repaired, but you can have proxies go between them to make sure that Ukraine still gets a decent deal.
Thank you very much, Shashank. Keep tracking this big international story. In case you were living under a rock, in case you missed, what exactly happened between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelenskyy over the weekend? It was a spat like no other. US President Donald Trump meeting Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelenskyy at the Oval Office in DC. And what was supposed to be, many would say, a joint statement turned into this.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position.
You
don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this.
You voted
We gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about West?
If you didn't have our military equipment,
you invited me.
If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days. I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.